Good morning. Hello out there. Hello, hello, hello. I am Kathy Spooner. So today I want to talk about tips for choosing sand trays for your playroom. I get asked this question all the time when I'm in doing trainings or when I'm doing supervision. And I think it's a really good question because if you're going to invest the time and effort to get the sand tray, especially the financial resources, I think it's important to consider a few things when you're figuring out what kind of sand tray to get. So if you're joining me live, go ahead and post your name in the comments, post where you're from. Let's see who's here. Do you have any questions? What kind of sand tray are you using? Do you like it? Why or why not? Post those in the comments. And if you're watching on the replay, go ahead and post your name also in the comments and where you're from. We'd love to hear what kind of sand tray you're using. Do you like it? Do you not like it? So I'm Kathy Spooner. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a registered play therapist supervisor. And I have been working with children, adolescents, and families for almost 30 years. Seems like a long time, actually. And I love using play therapy and expressive arts because I think it is one of the most effective ways to really help children engage more deeply in the change process because it meets their unique developmental needs. And I was first introduced to play therapy back in the mid to late 80s when I was a special education teacher. And I've been hooked ever since. So today I want to talk about sand trays and what kind of sand tray is a good fit for you and some things to think about when you're trying to figure out what kind of sand tray to get. If you find this information helpful, please share and like it on your social media. I go live every Wednesday at 7 a.m. Pacific time, which is 10 a.m. East Coast time. And I go live in my Facebook group for mental health professionals, which is called Play and Expressive Arts Therapy Playground. I go live on LinkedIn and YouTube. So if you find this information helpful, please like and share it. And if you're a mental health professional and you're interested in my Facebook group, you can go over there. You do have to join, answer the questions in order to get into the group. My mouth is not working well today. So anyways, okay, full disclosure. My dogs are joining me today in my office here at home because my husband is not here this morning. They're usually with him. If you hear strange digging noises in the background, I can already hear one dog starting. That is my crazy little dog. I don't know why she digs, but she is making herself comfortable. And if you hear weird digging noises, that is my dog, Lily, being a knucklehead. Anyway, so let's get started. First and foremost, what is the purpose of the sand tray? I really think this is an important thing to consider. And here's why I think it's important. If you understand the purpose of the sand tray, I think it also helps you figure out what kind of sand tray is going to meet your needs. The purpose of the sand tray is to hold the symbolic representation of whatever it is your client is holding on. It's the container. It holds the sand. The sand in and of itself is therapeutic, just the way that it feels. Think about, we all like to go, most people like to go to the beach. You love the way the sand feels. You dig your feet in it. It's kind of grounding. So the way that I think about the sand tray is it's the container for that sand, the healing qualities of the sand, the grounding qualities of the sand. And the symbols, those are the sand tray miniatures. You can see those in my background. It holds the sand tray miniatures, and those are symbolic representations of whatever it is your client is working through. So the sand tray has a really important purpose. It holds it's the container for that projective content that your client is working on throughout the treatment process. So determining what kind of sand tray is important. Once you understand the purpose of the sand tray, then determining which is the best option for you for a sand tray really depends on a few things. One, what kind of work are you doing? What sand therapy model are you using? How much space do you have? Are you able to store it? I know some clinicians work in schools, so they have to travel. Some people don't have their own space in order to have the sand tray and the miniatures available. So it might need to be portable, especially if you're doing more home-based therapy. Then you need to take the sand tray and symbols with you. So maybe it needs to be portable. If you're going to have a portable sand tray, that's going to probably look different than if you have a playroom space where you can keep it in there and you don't have to move it around. And the other thing is, how much money do you have to invest? That might not sound so glamorous, and it really is something we need to take into consideration because it gets a little pricey. So I do think it's important, and most of us think about those things. So what's your budget? What do you have? What's your budget for using a sand tray? So there are different kinds of sand trays, and I'm going to share my screen. I didn't do such a good job last time. I think I have the hang of it now. Oh my gosh, I can hear my dogs digging. Here's my notes. Let me share my screen. And I wanted to I have some, there we go. I have a slide of what I think, here we go. A couple of slides. I thought it might be helpful to see. So just some things to think about. The sand tray is the container for the projective content, and it can be made up of different materials. It can be made of wood. If you get a wood sand tray, which is honestly, that's my favorite, you're planning on allowing your clients, your young clients, or even your adolescents or adults, if you're planning on allowing them to use wet sand, you need to make sure it's waterproof. Not all wood sand trays are waterproof, so you need to make sure it's waterproof. You can get plastic, and I'll show some examples of those. There used to be a while back, I haven't been able to find them on the internet anyway, there were these white sand trays with blue interior. They made out of PVC. They looked pretty cool. By the time I was going to go buy one, I couldn't find them. They might still be out there, but plastic, those are still available. And the dimensions, you can get rectangle. Also, there's round or even octangle now. Typically, you want to think about, if you're getting a sand tray, the theory is that it's a container for the projective content that you can take in with your view of that world within one look. You don't have to look around or scan. You can take it all in at once. That's the theory for the size of the sand tray. Typically, I think the most typical kind of sand trays that you'll find are rectangular. The ideal, there are varying variations on maybe a little bit with these sizes. That the typical is 19.5 inches wide by 28.5 inches long by 2 3/4 inches deep. So it doesn't have to be exactly that. That's the, I would say that's the basic standard version to be able to take in the view of the world. And if they think about a rectangle, so here are some examples. And here you have a few different examples. There is the, on the lower right there, there's a wooden one. I have some sand in there. It's the rectangular one, and it's pretty close to those dimensions. And you can also see to the left of it is a wooden circular one. This one, I would say it is, I think it's 24 inches wide, 28 inches wide. It's actually a really big size. I love my round sand tray. I love using it for group work. It's a different experience than the rectangular one. The rectangular one, you have corners, which those symbolically, you're always looking to see what's in there. In the round sand tray, you don't have any corners. So therapeutically, it's a different experience. It's a little bit more like kind of a mandala experience. And mandala was first introduced into psychotherapy world by Carl Jung. That's my understanding. And the way he looked at mandala is it is that the kind of individuation of self through the use of the mandala, that circle, which has symbolic representation for kind of infinity, no beginning, no ending. It's got a little bit of a spiritual, because of those reasons, spiritually, medicine circles and circle has taken on a spiritual symbolic component to it, so to speak. And then above the round one, there is a plastic rectangular one. I do have these. I use these a lot in trainings. I've used them in my sand therapy rooms. This one at the top on the left, that blue one's like about $50. So it's affordable. And it's actually a pretty good container. I like this one because it's got some, it's like 3 inches deep, which the depth of the sand tray, here's a practical application of theory, and then theory drives application. So what I like about more of a 3-inch depth is kids get in there, they move it around. Sometimes they get a little enthusiastic and not as much sand falls out of the sand tray as it does if you have a sand tray that's not as deep. So that's one of the things that I like about that sand tray. One of the things I don't like about that sand tray is it's got these grooves on the bottom of it, so it's not really smooth. I personally don't really like that. In trainings that I've done, though, I've had people say they really liked the texture of it. So, you know, I think you'll find some clients prefer some types of sand and colors of sand and types of sand tray than others. These are just things to consider. It's affordable. It's the right size, so to speak. It's blue. So it's got that symbolic component of blue inside of it. You'll notice all of these are blue on the inside. That's a typical sand tray that's being used for sand therapy. Blue, the reason that it's blue and we like to have blue is because it's symbolic of water. So you have the blue on the bottom. A lot of times clients can kind of move the sand away and they'll use that blue for water or ocean, things like that. Blue around the side can be sky. So it's got that symbolic representation to it. And I find that to be important in the work. So, and then the final tray that you'll see is there in the upper right-hand corner. This is a travel sand tray, and this is one of the bigger ones. I think it's like 20 inches wide. I think. I forgot the dimensions for that, but it's more the size that's comparable to the rectangle size that we've been talking about is kind of the standard size. This one is made out of a lightweight plastic, and it's got a lid and handles that kind of clip the lid on. So if you do have to travel, this one's actually a really good one for traveling because it does secure the lid. So when you're traveling around, your sand doesn't spill all over the place. And when you're having to carry it from place to place, you have the handles and the lid is secure, so you don't have to worry about the lid coming off and everything spilling and falling all over the place. So that's a nice one to have if you do traveling. Or if you're just getting started and cost is a factor, I believe the travel sand tray is a little less expensive than the blue plastic one next to it. The wooden ones are going to be more expensive. They will usually come with a lid. That blue plastic one on the upper left does not come with the lid. That's one of the things that I wish it did have a lid, because if you get a lid for your sand tray, then when you're done, then you can put the lid back on and it's ready for the next person. Or at the end of the day, you're closing up your playroom, you put that on. If a child does not want to use the sand tray and you have a lid, it can now become like a table. I've played cards or different games on my sand tray. I've put my dollhouse on my sand tray. But also the other thing is, if you have a client who maybe gets overstimulated and is not able to regulate themselves, I find these to be usually the kids with ADHD, the boys who have a really strong hyperactive component. Sometimes it's a little too much for them. So you might have to put the lid on it to make it not accessible. I try not to do that, and sometimes I've had to do that. So it's nice to have the lid. It's nice to have the lid to keep the sand clean. Plus, I like a nice, neat playroom, so it's nice and neat that way as well. The round one at the bottom right, the bottom left, that one comes with the lid as well. I got that one off of Etsy. So Etsy might be a place if you're looking for wooden ones. Again, if you're getting wooden ones, you want to make sure that they're waterproof if you are planning on allowing water to be used in the sand tray. The nice thing about the plastic ones is that they are already, by their very nature, they are waterproof. So those are, let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Stop sharing. There we go. Okay. I hope you could see that. I'm still trying to figure out this platform. I think I'm back. Anyways, again, if you have a sand tray, post in the comments what do you like or what don't you like about your sand tray. Again, just as a recap, the things to consider are what is the purpose of the sand tray? The purpose of the sand tray is to be a container for that therapeutic process that your clients are working through. It's where they ground their symbolic representations of the issues that they're working through. An ideal sand tray, in my opinion, an ideal sand tray is a wood, because it's that natural material. It gives a really nice experience. Although that blue one that I showed you in the plastic one, as long as they're blue in the middle and they're kind of that size, sometimes people use the Rubbermaid, and I used the Rubbermaid ones when I first got started, because this is an expensive modality to get started with. I will tell you, I did use the Rubbermaid one really before I really had a good grounding in how to use the sand tray. I did find the experience in the Rubbermaid, because they're much, much deeper. They're not blue on the inside, so you kind of lose that symbolic quality to it. And they're kind of clear, so it's not necessarily a solid container. If that's what you have to get started with, then I would start there because you can always grow your miniature collection. You can always, at some point when you have the ability, get a wood or the other kind, the plastic kind that maybe fit your needs better. Ideally, I do like the wood ones because I think it's a really nice experience in the sand tray. I can put a lid on it. I really like that. And it has that blue symbolic representation on the inside to be able to take in. The reason you do those dimensions is because you can take in with like one view. My eye, when I'm looking, can take in the entirety of the sand world at a glance. And the typical dimensions, kind of standard dimensions, are pretty close to 19.5 inches wide by 28.5 inches long by 2 3/4 inches deep. If you get the rectangle one, the rectangle ones provide a little different experience than maybe the round ones. You can get the octagonal ones, and those do kind of have a little bit of corners to them. In fact, the octagonal ones, when I first got started like years ago, nobody was making the round ones. And so if you wanted to get kind of round, you would go with the octagonal. But now people have figured out how to make them round. So that's really, really cool, I think. There are less expensive options. So if your budget is not at the point where you can get the really nice wooden ones, then there are the less expensive plastic ones. And also if you need to have one that's portable, they do now have portable sand trays where the lid secures. And if you have to be portable, then I would totally get the one that's the travel sand tray where the lid secures, and you have the handles. It just doesn't spill all over the place. These are like the practical aspects of choosing your sand tray. So, alrighty, well, that is it for today. Those are my tips for choosing a sand tray for your playroom. If you're interested, I have a free PDF. It's called Must Have Sand Tray Miniatures. In that PDF, I do give some suggestions where you might be able to find different sand trays. I also put suggestions for different resources where you can find sand for your sand tray. If you're interested in some tips for really good sand, I do have a previous live episode. If you go back and find that live episode. If you're watching on YouTube, my YouTube channel, then they're pretty easy to find the live ones. I don't really have any pre-recorded ones yet. I haven't gotten that far. If you're in my Facebook group, just scroll through. I usually look in the announcements section because I typically try to tag those as announcements so you can find them more easily. So, and if you are on LinkedIn and watching LinkedIn, you can go over to I think you just go over to my profile and scroll through and try and find those. It's probably easier to find them on YouTube if you're not in my Facebook group. So that is it for today. I will post the PDF a little later today. It'll be in the comments below. To find the comments, just click on the comment tab that's below this, and the comments will drop down, and then you'll see where I posted the link to get the must-have sand tray miniatures. That also has some good information about resources, where to get sand trays, sand, and miniatures. And also post in the comments what sand tray are you using? What questions, if you don't have one and you want to get started, what questions do you still have about sand trays? And if you have a sand tray, do you like your sand tray, or what do you like or you don't like about your sand tray? So that is it for today. LinkedIn user says, thank you. Very good information. Oh, great. I'm glad it was helpful. Um, I get asked these questions a lot, so I'm glad it was helpful to you. All righty. And that is it for today. I'll see you next week.